Have you ever sat in silence and wondered, why does my life feel so different? Why, no matter how hard you try to blend in, there's always this invisible line between you and the world around you. Chosen one. That feeling isn't random. It's not a flaw. It's a calling. You weren't meant to fit in, because you were born to stand apart. From the very beginning, your path was marked. Not by people, not by circumstances, but by something far greater, by divine design. That deep sense of being different, the loneliness you couldn't explain, the battles you fought in silence, they were never signs of weakness. They were signs that you were chosen for something this world couldn't define. And I know, it's exhausting carrying a weight no one else sees. It's painful when those closest to you misunderstand your heart, your vision, your spirit. But hear me when I say this. There is purpose in every tear you've shed. There is destiny behind every door that was slammed in your face. You see, being a chosen one isn't about titles, applause, or recognition. It's about endurance. It's about being shaped in the shadows for a mission that only you can fulfill. While others lived in comfort, you were being refined. While they chased acceptance, you were learning resilience. And while they laughed at your solitude, heaven was preparing to reveal why you had to walk alone. Because when God sets you apart, He also sets you above, but not before teaching you how to survive below. So today, I need you to understand that everything you thought was working against you was actually working for you. The isolation was protection. The delays were alignment. The pain was preparation. This is more than motivation. This is a divine reminder. You're not forgotten. You're not lost. You're exactly where you need to be, because the rise of a chosen one is never rushed. Now, if something deep inside you knows this message isn't just words, if your spirit feels that quiet confirmation, then this is your sign. Drop a 111 in the comments as your declaration. Claim it. Own it. Because once a chosen one awakens, there's no going back to who you pretended to be. And before we dive deeper into the truths they never told you about your journey, make sure to like, subscribe, and stay connected. This space is for you, the ones who were called, refined, and are now being positioned. Remember, you weren't overlooked. You were hidden until the right moment. And that moment is now. Part 1. The Mark of the Chosen. Why you never fit in. Have you ever asked yourself, why do I always feel like the outsider, even in a room full of people? Why is it that no matter how much you give, love, or try to connect, you're still misunderstood, overlooked, or quietly pushed to the edges? Let me tell you something that few will ever say out loud. You didn't fail to fit in. You were never meant to. Being a chosen one comes with a mark, a spiritual signature that sets you apart long before you even realize it. From childhood, you likely felt it. Maybe you couldn't put it into words, but you sensed it. You saw life differently. You felt things more deeply. Where others could ignore injustice, you couldn't stay silent. Where they followed the crowd, you questioned everything. And that's where it began, the subtle separation. It wasn't because you weren't good enough. It was because your soul was too awake in a world that thrives on sleepwalking. See, many people are born into a rhythm, one of conformity, comfort, and going along with whatever is handed to them. But chosen ones? You're born with disruption in your DNA. Not to cause chaos, but to challenge what's broken, to bring light where darkness has been accepted for too long. But here's the truth they don't tell you. That separation feels like rejection before it feels like purpose. You probably remember those moments. Being left out, misunderstood by family, friends, even teachers. People saying, "You're too sensitive," or Why can't you just be like everyone else? It wasn't that you couldn't. It was that your spirit refused to shrink into a mold that was never designed for you. And yes, it hurts. Lonely. There were nights you probably wondered if something was wrong with you. But nothing was wrong. In fact, everything was going exactly as it should. Let me give you a divine perspective. God often hides his greatest warriors in plain sight. He places them in environments where they'll never get too comfortable, because comfort breeds complacency. If you had fit in, you would have been trapped by mediocrity, by the opinions of those who couldn't see beyond their limited view. You were set apart so that when the time came, you wouldn't be tied down by the need for approval. Think about it. Look at every story of greatness, whether it's biblical figures like Joseph, modern leaders, or even creatives who reshaped the world. They all carried the same mark: misunderstood, isolated, often rejected before being elevated. Joseph was betrayed by his own brothers and thrown into a pit, not because he was weak, but because his dream was too big for their understanding. David was left tending sheep while his brothers were paraded before the prophet, because no one saw a king in the boy who sang to God in the fields. Even Jesus himself was rejected in his hometown, because familiarity blinds people to divine purpose. So if you've been overlooked, counted out, or made to feel like you don't belong, congratulations. That's not a curse. It's confirmation. You see, when God chooses you, he doesn't start by giving you a throne. He starts by teaching you how to stand alone. And that's exactly what your life has been preparing you for. Now, here's where it gets deeper. The reason you didn't fit in wasn't just about protection. It was about preservation. Your energy, your vision, your heart, they were too valuable to be diluted by environments that didn't honor them. If you had stayed connected to certain people or places, your purpose would have been compromised. Have you ever reconnected with someone from your past and realized how different you've become? That's because while they were settling, you were stretching. While they were blending in, you were being built up. You were evolving in silence, and now you're starting to see why. But I need you to release the bitterness that sometimes comes with this journey. It's easy to resent the people who misunderstood you. It's tempting to carry anger toward the ones who excluded you. But remember, if they had accepted you, you might have accepted less for yourself. God hardened certain hearts, so you would be forced to lean on him, not them. So, chosen one, I ask you this. What if your loneliness was divine strategy? What if every room you didn't belong in was God's way of keeping you available for the room he's preparing specifically for you? Because trust me, there's a space where your presence won't be tolerated. It will be celebrated. Where your ideas won't be dismissed, they'll be valued. Where your heart won't be taken for granted, it will be protected. But you couldn't get there if you were too busy trying to be accepted by the wrong crowd. So today, I want you to shift your mindset. Stop asking, why didn't they include me? And start declaring, thank God they didn't. Because now you're free. Free from the need to conform. Free to walk boldly in your uniqueness. And that, chosen one, is your greatest power. Stay with me, because in the next part, we're going to talk about the silent battles you fought. Those unseen wars that nobody noticed, but heaven recorded every single victory. You didn't just survive by accident. You survived because you were built for more. Part 2. The silent battles only you fought. Chosen one. There's a unique kind of strength you carry. Not the loud kind that demands attention, but the quiet, unshakable strength forged in battles no one else even knew you were fighting. Let's be honest. How many times have you smiled in public while your heart was breaking in private? How many nights did you cry out, not because you were weak, but because you were tired of always having to be strong, alone? That's the reality of being chosen. It's not just about the calling, it's about the cost. See, people admire resilience when they see the results. They clap for survival when the storm has passed. But they weren't there when you were standing in the middle of it, feeling like every wave was going to pull you under. No one saw the nights when you held yourself together because there was no one else to lean on. No one noticed when you kept showing up, at work, for family, for friends, while silently carrying wounds that hadn't even begun to heal. And yet, you're still here. That's what makes you different. That's what proves you're chosen. Because where others would have collapsed under the pressure, you endured. Not because you had all the answers, but because something deep inside you refused to quit. Let me tell you this. The greatest warriors are not those who've never been wounded. They're the ones who kept walking despite the wounds. And you, chosen one, have been walking through invisible battlefields for years. Some of those battles were emotional. The heartbreaks, betrayals, and disappointments that tried to harden your heart. Others were mental. The self-doubt, the anxiety, the constant questioning of whether you were enough. And let's not forget the spiritual warfare, the unseen forces that tried to dim your light, to convince you that your pain had no purpose. But here's where your story becomes powerful. Every time life tried to break you, it underestimated who it was dealing with. You weren't just some random soul wandering through life. You were handpicked by God, and heaven doesn't waste its warriors. Think back. How many times did you think, "This is it, I can't take anymore"? And yet, somehow, you found strength you didn't know you had. That wasn't luck. That was divine resilience. Because God doesn't allow His chosen ones to fight battles without also equipping them with supernatural endurance. You didn't survive by accident, you survived by design. Now, I know there were moments when you questioned why it had to be this hard. Why you had to carry so much when others seemed to walk through life untouched by the weight you bore. Let me give you the answer your soul has been waiting for. The weight was heavy because your destiny is massive. You see, God trains His strongest soldiers in silence. He allows private battles because public victories are coming. But before He can trust you with influence, He has to know you won't fold under pressure. And chosen one, you proved that. Every silent battle you fought was a test, and you passed, even when you didn't realize it. But here's the beauties of it all. While no one else saw the nights you wrestled with fear, God did. While they overlooked your tears, heaven counted every one. And while people thought you were just getting by, angels were standing guard, knowing you were being prepared for something greater. Let me remind you of this truth. Survival wasn't your destination. It was your preparation. Because chosen ones aren't called just to endure. They're called to lead, to heal, to break generational chains. And how could you lead others through darkness if you'd never navigated it yourself? How could you speak life into broken hearts if yours had never been shattered and restored by God's hands? Your battles gave you more than scars. They gave you authority. Authority to speak hope where others see hopelessness. Authority to stand firm when others waver. Authority to walk into rooms and shift the atmosphere, not because of titles, but because of the weight your spirit carries. So don't despise those silent wars. They were sacred ground, the place where you learned who you really are, not who the world told you to be. And I know you're still healing from some of those wounds. That's okay. Healing is not a sign of weakness. It's proof that you survived what was meant to destroy you. But now, it's time to shift your perspective. Stop seeing yourself as someone who barely made it through. Start recognizing that you are someone who overcame, someone who heaven can trust with greater assignments because you've been tested in ways most people wouldn't understand. Chosen one, your silent battles were never in vain. They built a foundation inside you that cannot be shaken. So, when people look at you and wonder why you carry such wisdom, why you have such depth, why your presence feels different, It's because they're sensing the victories they never witnessed. They don't know the cost, but they feel the strength. And that strength is what's going to open doors no man can shut. It's what's going to position you to help others who are still fighting their unseen wars. Because now you're not just a survivor, you're a guide. But before we move forward, I want you to take a moment. Breathe. Acknowledge how far you've come, not in shame, but in honor. You've walked through fire, and you didn't come out smelling like smoke. You came out refined, resilient, and ready. In the next part, we'll talk about one of the hardest lessons chosen ones face: betrayal. Not just by strangers, but by those you loved the most. And how, even in that pain, God was positioning you for something far beyond what you could see. Stay with me, because understanding this will change how you view every heartbreak from this moment on. Part 3. Betrayal was a lesson, not a curse. Chosen one. Let's talk about one of the deepest wounds you've carried. The kind of pain that doesn't just bruise your heart, it changes how you see people forever. Betrayal. Not from enemies. No, that would have been easier to accept. But from the ones you trusted, the ones you loved, the ones you would have gone to war for. And yet they were the ones who threw the first stone. You see, betrayal hits differently when it comes from familiar faces. It's not just the act. It's the shock, the disbelief, the realization that not everyone connected to your heart was connected to your destiny. And if you're honest, some of the hardest moments in your life weren't caused by strangers. They were caused by those you let too close. But here's where I need you to lean in, chosen one. That betrayal wasn't a curse, it was a revelation. Because God will often allow you to see the true nature of people. Not to break you, but to free you. If they hadn't turned on you, you would have stayed tied to relationships that couldn't handle the weight of where God is taking you. If they hadn't walked away, you would have kept dragging dead weight into a future designed for those who can truly honor your calling. It hurts, I know, but sometimes divine protection comes disguised as painful separation. Let's go deeper. Think about Joseph. He was betrayed by his own brothers, sold into slavery by the very people who shared his blood. Why? Because they couldn't handle his dream. His vision exposed their insecurity. His favor stirred their jealousy. But had they not betrayed him, Joseph would have never reached Egypt, never interpreted Pharaoh's dreams, never risen to power to save nations, including the very brothers who betrayed him. Betrayal positioned him. And chosen one, the same applies to you. Those who betrayed you did so because they saw something in you, even if you didn't fully see it yet. Your light irritated the darkness they were hiding. Your loyalty reminded them of what they could never offer in return. Your purpose made them uncomfortable because it highlighted their lack of direction. So they did what insecure souls often do. They tried to diminish what they couldn't control. But here's the truth. They didn't reject you because you were worthless. They rejected you because your spirit revealed too much. And while you were busy asking, "Why did they hurt me?" God was saying, "I'm removing who can't go where I'm taking you." Sometimes betrayal is simply heaven's way of cutting ties you were too loyal to sever yourself. Let that sink in. You see, chosen ones carry hearts that love deeply, forgive easily, and hold on longer than they should. And that's beautiful. But it can also be dangerous when you're connected to people who only value you for what you give, not for who you are. So God allows moments of betrayal, not to punish you, but to redirect you, to wake you up to the reality that not everyone in your circle is in alignment with your assignment. And I know, it's easy to replay the conversations, to wonder if you could have done something differently. But hear me. You didn't lose anything that was meant to stay. You didn't push them away. Their hearts were never truly with you in the first place. Betrayal doesn't create disloyalty, it exposes it. Now, here's where the shift happens. You have a choice. You can carry that betrayal like a burden, letting it make you bitter, guarded, and closed off. Or you can see it for what it truly was, a divine lesson in discernment. Chosen one, you were never meant to become cold because of the way they treated you. You were meant to become wiser. Every betrayal sharpened your ability to see beyond words and into intentions. It taught you how to recognize energy before it turns into disappointment. It trained you to stop ignoring red flags just because you loved someone's potential. And that wisdom? It's priceless. Because where God is taking you, you'll need that discernment. New levels attract new faces, and not all of them come with pure motives. So don't despise what you went through. Honor it, because now you walk with clarity. Now you understand that peace is more valuable than proximity. Now you know that being alone is better than being surrounded by hidden enemies. And let me remind you of this. For every person who betrayed you, God has aligned people who will honor you. But He couldn't release them into your life until you learned how to let go of what was draining you. It was never rejection, it was redirection. You're not meant to carry the weight of bitterness. You're meant to walk in freedom, free from false connections, free from the need to prove your worth, free from questioning your value because of someone else's inability to recognize it. So, chosen one, lift your head. You didn't lose anything. You gained insight. You gained protection. You gained a clear path toward your purpose. And when you look back, you'll realize that the very people who tried to break you were actually pushing you closer to your breakthrough. In fact, you should thank them. Because without that betrayal, you might still be settling in spaces far beneath your calling. Now, as we move forward, I want you to release every name, every face, every moment tied to that pain. Not for them, but for you. Because your destiny is too important to be anchored to yesterday's wounds. In the next part, we're going to talk about something powerful. Why God hid your power until now. You've always felt something inside you, something bigger, something unexplainable. But why was it concealed? Why did it feel like your potential was locked away? Stay with me, because understanding this will finally give you peace about the delays, the quiet seasons, and the feeling that you were made for more, but had to wait for it. Trust me, God's timing is perfect, and your reveal is closer than you think. Part 4. Why God hid your power until now. Chosen one. You've always known, haven't you? That quiet feeling deep inside, that you were carrying something different. A sense that there was more to you than what people could see. More potential, more purpose, more power. But for so long it felt locked away, like you were waiting on something, but you couldn't quite explain what. You felt ready, or so you thought, yet doors stayed closed, opportunities passed by, and you wondered, why is my gift hidden? Why can't they see who I really am? Let me tell you something that will bring peace to your spirit today. God wasn't denying you. He was protecting you. When you're chosen, your power isn't released on your timeline. It's released on God's. And that timing is never random. It's strategic. It's intentional. It's designed to align with your maturity, your environment, and your ability to carry the weight of what's coming without being destroyed by it. You see, premature exposure is dangerous. A gift revealed too soon can attract enemies you're not yet equipped to handle. A spotlight too early can feed your ego before your character is rooted enough to withstand the pressure. And God loves you too much to let your potential become the very thing that crushes you. Think about it like this. If you hand a sword to someone who hasn't been trained, that sword isn't a tool. It's a threat to themselves and to others. But in the hands of a skilled warrior, that same sword becomes a weapon of precision, purpose, and protection. Your gift, your power, it had to stay concealed until you were ready. Let's look at how this plays out in Scripture. Take David, for example. He was anointed as king while still a shepherd boy. The oil marked him, but notice, he didn't run to the palace the next day. No, he went back to the fields. Why? Because being chosen is one thing. Being prepared to carry that calling is another. David had to face lions and bears in private before he could stand before Goliath in public. He had to learn leadership in obscurity before he could rule a nation. And you, chosen one, have been walking that same path. You were anointed long before anyone acknowledged it. You were carrying vision while others only saw a shepherd. But God was hiding your power, not to limit you, but to develop you. Because here's what many don't realize. There's a difference between being visible and being valuable. The world chases visibility, but God cultivates value in the hidden places. In your hidden seasons, you learned humility. You discovered who you were without applause, without validation, without needing a stage. You learned to hear God's voice above the noise of opinions. And most importantly, you learned restraint, the ability to know your power, but not feel pressured to prove it. That's a rare kind of strength, because true power isn't loud. It's not desperate to be seen. It's quiet confidence, knowing that when the time comes, nothing and no one can stop what God has ordained. And chosen one, that time is approaching. You may not have noticed it yet, but subtle shifts are happening around you. The same doors that were once closed will begin to open effortlessly. The rooms you used to be ignored in, you'll suddenly be the voice they need to hear. Not because you changed who you are, but because the season has changed. God hid your power because He was waiting for the environment to match your assignment. Some places you wanted to be accepted into would have minimized your gift. Some people you longed for approval from would have mishandled your purpose. So God kept you hidden, not because you were forgotten, but because you were too important to be placed carelessly. Think about this. When a masterpiece is being crafted, it's not displayed halfway through. It stays in the studio, behind closed doors, until the artist decides it's finished and ready to be revealed. You, chosen one, are that masterpiece. Every delay was a brushstroke. Every season of silence was refinement. And now, the reveal is near, not to show off, but to fulfill purpose. But here's the key. When God unveils your power, it won't be for validation. It will be for impact. This isn't about proving anyone wrong. It's about proving God right. Walking boldly in what He placed inside you, knowing that every hidden year was worth it. So if you've been feeling frustrated, questioning why things took so long, shift your perspective. Thank God for the hidden seasons, because they saved you from premature battles, from unnecessary pain, and from platforms that weren't built to sustain your destiny. And now that you're stepping into alignment, remember this. You don't need to force doors open. You don't need to announce your arrival. When God says it's time, your power will speak for itself. People will wonder where you came from. They'll ask, how did you rise so quickly? But you'll know. It wasn't sudden. It was years of being shaped in silence. In the next part, we'll talk about what happens after this unveiling, the transformation phase. Because once your power is revealed, life doesn't just go back to normal. You're called to rise from the ashes of everything that tried to break you, stronger, wiser, and completely unshakable. Stay with me, chosen one. Your story is just beginning to unfold. Part 5. The transformation phase. From broken to unshakable. Chosen one. There comes a point in every journey where you look back at the pieces of who you used to be, and you realize you're never going to be that person again. Not because life was kind, but because life broke you. And in that breaking, something far greater was born. This is the transformation phase. the sacred space where God takes everything that was meant to destroy you and reshapes it into the foundation of your strength. Let's be honest, you didn't get here without scars. You've been through storms that no one else could have survived. You've lost people, dreams, even parts of yourself along the way. There were moments when you thought, I'll never recover from this. But look at you now. Not only did you recover, you became someone entirely new. That's what they don't tell you about being chosen. Before you rise, you'll be broken. Not to weaken you, but to strip away everything that can't go with you to the next level. See, God isn't interested in building your destiny on shaky ground. He doesn't elevate versions of us that are still tied to fear, people-pleasing, or false identities. So he allows a breaking, a divine dismantling of everything that was never truly you. It feels painful in the moment. You feel like you're losing control, like everything is falling apart. But in reality, it's falling into place. Think about how gold is refined. It has to pass through intense fire to burn away impurities. Or how a sword is forged, hammered, heated, and shaped repeatedly until it becomes a weapon of purpose. Chosen one, that's exactly what God has done with you. Every betrayal, a hammer strike. Every disappointment, another pass through the fire. Every delay, heartbreak, setback, it was all part of the forging process. And now you're no longer fragile, you're unshakable. But here's what's beautiful about divine transformation. It doesn't just make you stronger, it makes you wiser, more compassionate, more aligned with your true purpose. You no longer chase validation because you've learned that approval from people is temporary. You no longer fear loss because you've survived without what you once thought you couldn't live without. And you no longer doubt your worth because God Himself has shown you who you are when everything else was stripped away. This phase of transformation isn't about becoming someone new. It's about returning to who you were always meant to be before life, pain, and expectations tried to reshape you. You've shed the layers of false identity. You've released the need to explain yourself to those who were never meant to understand you. And now you walk differently. You speak with authority, not because you demand it, but because your journey commands it. People will start to notice. They'll say, "You've changed." But what they don't realize is, you didn't just change, you evolved. You grew roots so deep that no storm can uproot you now. You found peace in solitude. You discovered power in silence. And you learned that survival wasn't your greatest achievement. Becoming whole again was. But here's something important to remember in this phase. When you emerge transformed, don't shrink to make others comfortable. There will be people who preferred you when you were broken, when you were easier to manipulate, when your light was dimmed, when your boundaries were non-existent. But that version of you no longer exists. You don't owe anyone the old you. You don't have to apologize for the strength you've gained or the standards you've raised. Transformation demands that you honor who you've become, even if it means walking alone a little longer. Because this unshakable version of you is exactly who God intended to step into the next chapter. The healed you, the discerning you, the purpose-driven you. Now, let me be clear. This doesn't mean life will suddenly be free of challenges, but now you face them differently. Where fear once lived, faith now stands. Where anxiety ruled, peace governs. And where weakness tried to linger, resilience has taken root. This is what happens when a chosen one survives the breaking. You don't just go back to living. You rise with a mandate to inspire, to build, because your transformation wasn't just for you. It was so others could witness what God can do with a life surrendered to His process. People will look at your story and find hope for their own. They'll see the ashes you came from, and realize that beauty truly can rise from brokenness. So, chosen one, stand tall in your transformation. Embrace the strength you fought so hard to earn. And know this: everything that tried to bury you didn't realize you were a seed. Now you're growing in places they never thought you'd survive. In the next part, we'll talk about what happens after transformation, the awakening. Because once you've been broken and rebuilt, something incredible happens. You begin to remember who you truly are. Not who the world told you to be, but who God destined you to become before you were even born. Stay with me, because awakening is where the real journey begins. It's time to reclaim your identity, your authority, and your divine place in this world. Part 6. The Awakening. Remembering who you are. Chosen one. There's a moment in every divine journey when everything shifts. Not because your circumstances suddenly change, but because you do. It's called the awakening. It's that quiet, powerful realization where you stop searching outside of yourself for answers, and you begin to remember who you've always been. For so long, life tried to convince you otherwise. The world, your environment, even people close to you, they all projected limitations onto you. They told you to be realistic. They told you to stay small, stay silent, stay in line. And for a while, maybe you believed them. But here's the truth, chosen one. You were never meant to live according to their expectations. You were designed to live according to divine revelation. Awakening isn't about becoming someone new. It's about peeling back the layers of doubt, fear, and conditioning that covered your true identity. It's that moment when you hear a voice, not from outside, but deep within, that says, "This is who you are. This is who you've always been." You start to see things differently. What once intimidated you no longer holds power over you. The opinions that used to weigh you down now seem irrelevant. You no longer ask for permission to exist fully. Why? Because when a chosen one awakens, they step into authority. And authority doesn't beg to be seen. It doesn't ask for validation. It simply is. Think about it. For years, you may have felt like you were wandering, unsure, questioning your worth, second-guessing your every move. But that was before you knew what was really inside you. Now, after all the battles, after the breaking and the transformation, you finally see it. You carry something this world cannot define or confine. And here's what happens when you awaken to that truth. You begin to walk differently. Not with arrogance, but with a quiet confidence that comes from knowing you're backed by heaven. You stop shrinking in rooms that were never designed to hold your full light. You stop over-explaining your spirit to people who were never meant to understand it. And you stop settling for anything less than what aligns with your divine purpose. Awakening is freedom. It's the release of every false label ever placed on you. It's the moment you reclaim your name, your voice, your vision. But let me be clear. When you awaken, not everyone will celebrate it. There will be people who preferred you asleep. When you were easier to control, easier to predict, easier to dim. Your awakening will disturb those who benefited from your confusion. And that's okay, because chosen one, you weren't called to comfort others at the expense of your own calling. You were called to rise, even if it makes others uncomfortable. This is where discernment becomes your greatest ally. Not everyone can walk with the awakened version of you. Some relationships, environments, and habits will naturally fall away, and they should. Because awakening demands alignment. You'll start to notice how your spirit reacts differently. Conversations that once entertained you now feel empty. Places you used to frequent feel heavy, and people you tolerated now reveal their true energy. That's not you being difficult. That's your spirit recognizing what no longer matches your frequency. You've elevated, and elevation requires separation. But don't fear that distance. God is clearing space, not to isolate you, but to make room for divine connections, for opportunities that resonate with your awakened purpose. Here's something powerful to remember. When you truly know who you are, you stop chasing what was never meant for you. You no longer run after love that doesn't honor you. You no longer pursue opportunities that compromise your values. You no longer entertain conversations that drain your energy. Because now you understand the value of your presence. Awakening also brings clarity about your gifts. Those abilities you once downplayed or ignored. Now you see them for what they are, tools for your divine assignment. Whether it's your empathy, your creativity, your ability to lead, to heal, to inspire, these aren't random traits. They are keys placed inside you by God, waiting for the moment you'd awaken and use them boldly. And here's the best part. You don't have to force anything. When you walk in alignment with your true identity, doors open naturally. Opportunities seek you. The right people recognize your spirit without you having to prove a thing. Because awakened energy is magnetic. It draws what is meant for you, and it repels what isn't. So, chosen one, I ask you this. Now that you remember who you are, what are you going to do with it? Because awakening isn't the end, it's the beginning. It's the starting point where you step fully into purpose, where you stop playing small, and where you finally own your place in this world. No more doubting, no more hiding, no more waiting for a sign. You are the sign. You've survived the battles. You've endured the breaking. You've embraced transformation. And now you've awakened. The world needs this version of you, the clear, confident, divinely aligned you. In the next part, we'll talk about exactly that. How to walk in purpose now that you've awakened. Because being chosen isn't just about knowing who you are. It's about understanding why you're here and the impact you're destined to make. Stay with me, because your next steps are not just important, they're prophetic. Part 7. Walking in Purpose. Why the world needs you now. Chosen one. Now that you've awakened, the question is no longer, who am I? The real question becomes, what was I sent here to do? Because knowing you're chosen is just the beginning. Walking in your purpose, that's where destiny unfolds. You see, God didn't set you apart, refine you through battles, and awaken your spirit just for you to live a quiet life in the shadows. No, chosen one. You were prepared for a reason far greater than personal success or comfort. You were called to impact, to lead, to shift atmospheres simply by being who you were created to be. And right now, more than ever, the world needs awakened souls like you. In a time when confusion is celebrated, when truth is blurred, and when fear controls so many hearts, those who carry divine clarity are essential. You've been given wisdom through your wounds. You've gained discernment through your delays. And now you carry a light that wasn't meant to be hidden. It was meant to guide others out of darkness. But here's something you must remember. Walking in purpose doesn't always look grand or glamorous. Sometimes, it's the quiet conversations that change lives. It's the courage to speak truth when silence would be easier. It's showing compassion in a world that's grown cold. It's being a living example of resilience, faith, and integrity. Purpose isn't a destination. It's a daily decision. Every morning, you wake up and choose to align your actions, your words, and your energy with the calling God placed on your life. And don't think for a second that your role is insignificant. Chosen ones are often planted in places where others overlook them, but that's because your presence is designed to transform those environments from within. You're the light in the workplace, filled with negativity. You're the peace in a family bound by generational chaos. You're the voice of wisdom among friends still lost in confusion. Wherever you are, it's not by accident. You were assigned there. But now you must walk boldly in that assignment. No more questioning if you're ready. You've been prepared. No more waiting for the perfect moment. The time is now. And understand this. Walking in purpose doesn't require perfection. It requires obedience. God isn't asking you to have it all figured out. He's asking you to move forward with what you know, trusting that He will guide each step. The world doesn't need another copy of what already exists. It needs the authentic, powerful, awakened you. So, speak when you're called to speak. Create when inspiration strikes. Stand firm when others waver. And never dilute your light to make darkness comfortable. You've been entrusted with this calling because heaven knew you could handle it. All those years of preparation, all the silent battles, they were building a foundation strong enough to carry the weight of your purpose. And here's the beautiful part. As you walk in alignment, doors will open that no man can shut. Resources, connections, opportunities, they will flow to you, not because you're chasing them, but because you're operating in divine order. Chosen one, this is your season to activate everything that's been placed inside you. Not tomorrow, not when you feel more qualified, but today. Because somewhere, someone is waiting for the light you carry. Your story, your wisdom, your presence. It's the answer to a prayer they haven't even spoken yet. So rise with confidence, walk with purpose, and remember, this world doesn't define you. You were sent to redefine what this world sees as possible. In the final part, we'll bring this journey full circle. Because understanding your calling is one thing, sustaining it is another. Stay with me as we close with a reminder of how to remain aligned, empowered, and ready for everything God has prepared for you. Your time is not coming, it's here. You were always meant to rise. Chosen one. Take a moment. Breathe in everything you've just heard, not just with your mind, but with your spirit. You now understand why your life was never ordinary, why the battles were harder, why the silence was longer, why the journey felt heavier. It was never because you were forgotten. It was because you were being forged, prepared for a purpose that few could carry. Now you know who you are. Now you see the divine design behind every delay, every betrayal, every hidden season. This isn't just another motivational message. This is a confirmation. You didn't come this far just to survive. You were called to lead, to shine, to transform the spaces you walk into. So as you step forward, remember this. You don't need to prove yourself. You don't need to rush. You simply need to stay aligned, stay obedient, and trust that what's meant for you is already in motion. Heaven has seen your tears. Heaven has recorded your silent victories. And now, heaven is preparing to reward what was built in private. Chosen one, your rise will not be small. It will not be subtle. It will be exactly as God intended, undeniable. So if this message resonated deep within you, if you feel that quiet voice saying, "This is my word," I want you to seal it. Drop 111 in the comments as your declaration. Let it be known. You're not waiting for permission to step into your calling. You're walking in it now. And before you go, make sure to like, subscribe, and stay connected, because this journey isn't over. There's more wisdom, more guidance, and more divine revelation ahead. Remember, you weren't just chosen to endure, you were chosen to overcome and to inspire others to do the same. Your light is needed, your purpose is activated, and your time has arrived.